Welcome to the Range Podcast. I'm Ricky Bruley, and with me is Jake Hollywood Iverson. Join us at the Archery Range, where we'll tell stories from the hunt, discuss technical bow shooting tactics and gear, and pick the brains of some of the most successful people to ever shoot a bow. Whether you're about to shoot that X for the win or send an arrow at a trophy buck, this podcast is for you. The Range Podcast is brought to you by Vapor Trail Archery, makers of the best bowstrings money can buy, originators of limb-driven arrow rest technology, and innovators of Stokerized stabilizer systems. Welcome to The Range, everybody. I'm your host, Ricky Bruley, and I'm sitting here with my co-host, Mr. Jake Hollywood Iverson. How are you, man?
Doing all right.
Good.
Yeah.
It's 3 words.
I know. Sorry. It should have been just all right.
All right. So what's been happening in your world, man? How's life?
Well, everyone knows I was turkey hunting a little bit recently, but not a whole lot after that.
Haven't
Went for a
gotten
nice backpacking trip, and then now we're just what have we been doing? A lot of things.
Tunnel vision on the Victor,
yeah,
for sure.
It's just Victor work, and now more numbers for me.
Yeah.
So
numbers. Where did you go hiking again?
Superior Hiking Trail up north of Duluth. I think we started in, I'm not exactly sure. I think it's Castle Danger. And do you guys know where Betty's Pies is?
Oh, yeah.
So we started right there behind them and then hiked up to Split Rock Lighthouse. So
okay.
That was only, I think it's 26 miles. But
So you weren't quite as far as Grand Marais.
no, we already did parts of that section. So
Okay.
we're kind of just trying to finish the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Got it.
it's our goal, finish
Right on.
the whole trail. 300 miles.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
So,
cool.
That's
yeah.
great.
It's
Yeah.
wild too, because my wife and her sister and daughter were actually up there
Yeah.
at the same time you were, but they were closer to Grand Marais.
They probably drove right by us anyway.
Yeah.
In the rain when we were walking.
They did the the heck is it called? It's like bear and
Oh, the Bean and Bear Loop.
yeah.
Yeah,
that's
we already
what I
hiked
did.
That's we just finished that section, so we did that. I thought it was only 2 years ago, but it was actually 4.
Oh, wow.
That's how fast time goes. It
Yes.
was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And we did that one, and we did it in the fall. Happened to be there when the colors were just changing over. It's gorgeous, but it also sucked at that section because so many day hikers are there. And like we're trying to get point A to point B, and you have all these less than able hikers on the trail and in your way, and it's fall, so then you're like a seasoned or like fit hiker, backpacker, and you're like trying to get around these people, and it's like, oh my god, like,
Yeah.
just get out of the way. So yeah,
I feel
Yes.
that.
yeah.
And it only gets worse as you get older too, you know. There's a clip out there from, oh gosh, what the heck is the guy's name? The British guy, Hugh Grant. And he's like, as I get older, he's like, I just peeve a lot. And I feel that so much. Like when I'm out in public, everything drives me crazy. Like everything makes me angry. Like the simplest stuff, you know, some kid's backpack. I'm just like, oh, that's a stupid backpack, you know. And then you're like at Target and people are in your way and you're trying to get around them. And
The old crabby guy.
you know, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Maybe Frank is just a beacon of positivity all the time. I don't think I've ever seen a guy mad.
Well, 57, and you kind of, it's amazing how certain things you just kind of like, why am I getting upset with this? Why is this irritating me so much? So you just try to draw yourself back out of that. But yeah, some things are just like, and as you get older, I guess you just shorter tolerance, to just kind of try to blow it off, but sometimes you just can't, so it really drives you nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you just gotta kind of breathe and kind of let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can change it, go for it. If you can't, well, you're gonna just have to deal with it, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I hear
Best of
that.
luck.
I hear that. You just gotta take a deep breath and not let that stuff bother you, right? So kids have taught me that patience quite a bit, but at the same time, I'm still like, I spend less time out in public, you know, now with the opportunities, with I basically just order my groceries and I just go pick them up. Like, they bring them out to me. It's beautiful. I don't have to deal with people.
It is
other than
pretty
the guy
nice.
that brings them out.
COVID has made some things a little easier.
Yeah. But at the same time, it is really, my patience is razor thin now. So.
Well, especially when you get off work, you're just like, I want to go home. I don't want to be going a
Right.
million places and all that
It's the
stuff.
worst.
Point A to point B.
Yeah, you just need time to kind of reflect, I guess, and be thankful for what you do have.
Yes.
Because it's easy to get the negativity is more easily available to be judged upon as far as the positive things that do happen. A lot of good things happen during the day. Just sometimes you got to look harder for it, which is kind of that can be a huge task at times. So but keep doing it, think positive, try to drive yourself forward.
Yeah. This is why I keep Frank close.
Well, the Instagram memes are pretty funny. It kind of sums things up. So that's why I got to send them along.
Oh,
just to
man,
kind of
I'm
go.
getting-
I think you could probably deal with this or identify with this one, and relate to it.
I'm getting slapped in the face by reels from Frank all the time, and I absolutely love it. Especially love the ones that you send me where it's just like, today is gonna be effing awesome. Like, slap all those bitches in the face and whatever.
Yep.
So
Yeah, just to start it off and have a laugh. Everybody's got to laugh for sure. Oh.
definitely. So it's no mystery. We have Mr. Frank Welsh here again today. The last couple episodes we've done with him have been fantastic, and he speaks very articulately and has a lot of good things to say. And so now we have kind of like 3 generations of perspectives here. And so this conversation was stemmed from, Frank and I actually were talking yesterday, and we started talking about out-of-state hunting and how it's getting just so many changes now, and there's so much uncertainty about how it's going to look in the future. And so we had a pretty long conversation about that, and I was wishing, when it was done, I was hoping that we had been recording, so then I just thought, well, what, if you can get in here today, I messaged him this morning, so sorry about that, Frank.
No worries.
But I just was like, hey, you think you could get in here today? We would have had this discussion either way, me and Hollywood, but it's just, I thought you had a lot of interesting things that really got the gears kind of turning in my head. Just another perspective that I like to try to look at. So this episode is about the out-of-state hunting debacle, I guess we'll call it. And we'll get into that in just a minute. But first, I just want to thank everybody for listening. And if you want to watch this episode, you can head on over to the Vapor Trail YouTube channel. Head over there, give us a like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you can be up to date on all things archery. If you're listening, be sure to give us a review and a rating. Only 5 stars will do. I mixed that up. I got it messed up, so now it didn't rhyme right.
It sounded all right.
It was kind of like a haiku.
Yeah. That's still whatever, man.
It's a Ricky haiku.
In any case, so thanks everybody once again for being here. We got Mr. Frank Welsh in the house, and so we're going to open up this conversation. I think what really kind of got us started on the whole thing was, and Hollywood mentioned this earlier, is I had seen something where the state of Oklahoma now is, I don't know if they've actually passed it or if it's something they're talking about, where non-residents actually have to gain permission to hunt on public ground in the state of Oklahoma.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, do you know more specifically about where it's at this point or what they're talking about?
Not myself, no.
I'm gonna look it up.
When I first saw it, I was thinking, who goes to Oklahoma to hunt?
That's a nice whitetail, actually.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I do know they have some pockets of good spots. But no, I just saw pretty much, we saw the same article where it's, now the access might be harder, where, you have to ask for permission to go on public lands as if it is privately held already. I don't know if we want to keep going on that, but overall, I mean, it seems that public pressure has been higher over the last few years, and especially COVID. I think we've kind of mentioned that a couple of times in different episodes, but it looks like Rick is looking up kind of that Oklahoma deal.
Yeah, it is a go. according to this record or this article from Outdoor Life, non-resident hunters will have to obtain written authorization from the Oklahoma Wildlife Conservation Commission. If demand outpaces the number of hunters these areas can support, a lottery will determine access. On top of regular license costs, successful applicants will also pay a permit fee of up to $100.
I thought I saw that you had to pay to actually go on public land. I thought I saw that.
What?
Yeah.
So that's where things get quite interesting, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
it's
pay to play now.
public grounds, you know, because there's state and then there's federal, you know. So how does that all play out?
Yeah.
Because we all are taxpayers, especially on the federal end of things. So technically, we have land throughout this wonderful country that's federal based that we should have access to. But now we're, you know, I don't know if that's, well, it's just state, so they can do what they want. But that's going to be a very gooey process to try to figure out how you're going to get permission. So it's like you got to write an essay and it goes to the commission board and then they, like, are you suitable to even come here? And then we'll give you
I feel
an
like
allowed sticker or license.
that's just gonna be even harder to. I don't know. I think it's gonna make it definitely harder to actually go and hunt because now you're having to balance that, and I feel like it's just gonna turn people away
Oh, yes.
instead.
For sure it is.
Which
Well, mission
And-
accomplished.
right? Yeah, I was gonna say mission accomplished for the local residents
Mm-hmm.
of that state.
Mm-hmm. Because here's the deal. So when Frank and I were talking, it's like there's the argument, well, why would they turn down all that money? But what they do now is, in order to reduce the number of hunters that are coming in, they raise the price to make up for the lack of numbers of licenses that are being sold. So in turn, you're getting the same amount of money, but you have less people.
Mm-hmm.
Although, you know, and I guess, you know, and according to this, it says that it is the state's wildlife management areas. So I'm assuming you can still access federal ground that is huntable, that they allow you to hunt on, because not all federal ground is huntable.
Yeah, if there is any there.
Like I think a lot of like some of the designated monuments, I don't think you can hunt.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe we should look into that more specifically. But
Mm-hmm.
it is I mean, to a degree, I get it. Like I'm like kind of right down the middle of this whole thing, right? Because it's certainly gotten more difficult. I mean, when I first started hunting North Dakota, there was no doubt you were going to get a tag as long as you put in for it before the deadline. There was never a year I didn't get it. It was pretty much a guarantee. And then you had some years where, you know, they had some hard winter kill, you know, stuff like that. Understandable, you know, so now it kind of reduces that. But now it's twofold. So you have a few hard winter kills, and then on top of that, you've got, from COVID, you've got this influx of hunters going and people recreating in these areas. And so now what was it? We had, was it the one guy had, was it 3 points or 4 points and still didn't draw in North Dakota?
4. This year he'll have 5.
And
Wow.
looking at the statistics years prior, there was anybody, if you had 4 points, you were guaranteed to get that point.
Yeah.
And I
Anything
think he was
past
like
3.
the one person.
He is the one now.
get it.
He's the one.
I mean,
Lord,
so
yeah.
it's like, again, that's probably a complete and total anomaly, you know. But the point is that now, you know, you're looking at least 3 years to get a license there. And then you just keep hearing it, you know, all over the place. You know, my buddy Garrett out of Colorado is saying that there was just tons of people everywhere when he was out sheep hunting. You know, he's like, we are deep in the nastiest, most disgusting land you could ever be in, as far as, you know, accessibility, for a reason to get away from the masses. And he was like, we were still seeing people.
Yeah.
So certainly it's become an issue, and the states are trying to respond. But what do you do? I mean, for me, I kind of like the idea of there being less hunters when I go there, and I'm willing to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, too, is the whole thing, you know, with what we do and who we are, is we want to introduce people to the outdoors and have these experiences. And if you're blessed to be in a state that has elk and antelope and mule deer and whitetail and et cetera, that's great. But of course we don't, so we want to travel because we love the outdoors and we want to experience that. So we got to travel and create that opportunity. I get where with any game species we're trying to regulate and not snuff out said species in that state. So I know that's what the DNR's primary responsibility is, to make sure that and manage the animals, to make sure that there's always animals there for people to enjoy. So I get where I have no problems with, if the herd is X, well, that would determine X amount of tags, period. So why not make that the caveat to that is just, let's not try to, it's $1,000 for a tag now. So now the average person really can't go out there and do that. They don't have the money to do that.
Right.
So I guess that's the, what is the balance? You're either trying to gain more dollars and you're trying to snuff out a whole demographic of people that, what are we trying to do? I just throwing it out there as a topic, because I definitely, I love the outdoors, and if I can, have other people experience that, that's what I want to encourage them to do, is to, go for it, and talk to the DNR and give them avenues of what they should do before they go out there, because they're, that's what the DNR is for. They'll help you. They'll give you information. Public grounds, this, that, and the other, to be able to go and hunt. So I guess it'd be nice to understand what they're truly trying to do. Are you trying to limit a demographic of people, and you want to just make more money? And how are we taking care of the game species that we're going after? Is it? I guess it's a whole balancing act of trying to figure that out. That's not in my arena of expertise at all. But I guess that's what it's concerning. Now you gotta, because other states could follow, and then now it's just another layer to make it even more difficult for anybody that would like to be able to go do that can't articulate or figure out how to even get down that avenue to experience that. So how hard is it? It's hard enough anyways, just figuring out what zones you're going to be in and what tag is for what, and then you're putting in for points, and you're throwing whatever every single year for how many years that you don't see that money until you draw a tag, and then you're going to be $500-$600 on top of that you've already put in. So you've been going for X amount of years, so you got already $400 on top of that. So that's $1,000 for a regular deer tag or whatever that is, because every state's a little bit different on how that process goes too. So I don't know. I guess I'm concerned that the average Joe isn't going to be able to have that opportunity down the road. It's concerning for me. I've been able to do a lot of different things and travel around, and of course I'm more limited now, so I don't do that as much. So I just want, I guess that's the question mark, is what's really trying to be done? What are we targeting?
It's the whole, for me, I think it's the whole, you can't have your cake and eat it too, because what I'd like to know is, are the species really, what are, like you said, what are their populations at? Are they really suffering that bad? Are they being decimated by us? I don't think so. I think, there's multiple states that have released, harsh winter conditions and that sort of thing. And like, I was looking it up, and it looks like for Wyoming, it's 40% of their tags are non-resident. And that drives a lot of money toward the economy of their state.
Sure, absolutely.
So that is that is the question, I guess. What are we trying to do? Get more hunters or less? Because are you trying to get more money and lose a population, or are you trying to maintain this population and then let some money go? So I think it's definitely hard. And, for me, I think I've already put in probably close to $800 over the last 4 years for multiple different states just for points.
Yep.
And when I go to
Yeah.
draw the tag, it's going to be $800 to $1,200
Correct.
on top of what I've already spent.
Yep.
And actually, some of those tags, if I ever get fortunate enough, I'll probably have $3,000 into it. Maybe that's a lot, but then the tag itself is going to cost $2,500.
Right.
You know, it really depends on how long I'm going to be putting in points before I draw some of those
Mm-hmm.
big tags.
Yeah.
You know, so it's tough to say.
Well, and I think the core, you know, there's any outdoorsmen, guys and gals out there that you don't want to decimate a species. I mean, we're trying to make those conditions better and to have that resource around. I think that's where it should always stem from. So if I have to, you know, if it truly is these areas aren't able, you know, the population base has gone down, they need to get it up, not a problem. We shouldn't be all up in arms like, oh, I can't go hunt there. It's like, well, it's hurting, so we don't want to do that, right? We want to have that resource there and available, and that's fine, you know. But the dollar amount thing is kind of interesting.
I feel like if they truly saw or having population issues, and granted they did say that, okay. What was that?
He's opened and closed the door.
Was it Luke?
No, it was Rory.
Oh, he actually showed up. So anyway, if there's actual population issues occurring, and granted some states I think have actually stated it, I wish they would just flat out say it.
Yeah.
Because then as hunters, I think all of us would be like, okay, we're just going to get points.
Yeah, not a problem.
We'll just wait for
we'll
points.
just back off. Yeah.
I mean, eventually I think that it's all it all hurts each other though, because if you just start going points, then it's all of a sudden points creep. You know, then when 10 years from now, let's say their population is booming, they're ready for all these non-res people. Now you have a huge influx possibly of all these hunters anyway. You know, I don't know if there'll ever be like a easy answer for all of it. But then how they're coming up with some of the these numbers too, like one state in particular, to get the non-res bow hunter license numbers, they go off of how many deer or that species was taken with a residence tag. In I think they focus more on the rifle tags. So they basically take how many successful tags were filled, and then they go from there. But that doesn't have a population. That doesn't directly reflect the population. Because if all of us are on Team QDMA, we're going to let every small, immature buck walk and maybe shoot a couple does if you can in your area. But that's not a reflection of the population. That's only a reflection of success. And so this state in particular is going off of the success of filled tags for a given year. And so now this year that state dropped their tag availability. Another 15 or 20 tags or whatever it is. So now it's like, okay, so people were less successful last year. Why? Was it less hunters? Was it less, tags sold? Like, what was it? I just don't feel like that's really a great way of going about it either. Because
you can factor weather conditions. It could have been raining or whatever miserable conditions for 2-3 weeks that whole season.
Right.
Depending, the animals could have been there, but the conditions were just awful. So the success rate wasn't set to really. What you're saying is valid because again every state does it differently on forecasting how many animals are there.
And I don't know. I guess as a non-resident person that already has put in, money for points over the years, and then you see that, last year they weren't so successful, so now we have less tags. So of course it's being selfish. I just want to get out there and hunt. And then, because some of these places, there's a good population there, but some of these guys might not be willing to go in those extra miles. Like that Garrett, they're going further in and they're finding plenty of animals. Mm-hmm. But the guys on the front end, they're only going in maybe a couple miles. They might not see anything because they pushed everything back.
Sure.
And then they're going off of hunter surveys. Oh, what'd you see? Oh, there's nothing out here. I mean, that was my case for the one state, you know. But that's in a small subset area. That's not, I can't say that broadly for the whole state. And that was after it was a bad winter kill that year before. But I don't think tag should be based off of that. You know, I think it.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, that's the whole thing. Is the process is different in every state on how they forecast, and that really should be the ground basis for anything moving forward for tags. You know, it's like, what is the population? You know, so now you can divide that out to X amount of hunters, period, and then that reflects down to however they just want to distribute, you know, muzzle loading and archery and all that other fun stuff.
I think
So
maybe
it's just,
success of tags filled comes after the population counts, and then certain zones, like you're saying earlier, maybe certain zones. We know certain ones in
yeah, you shut them down.
North
It's
Dakota.
just it's not good.
Yeah, there's
That's
some
fine.
that have extra pressure. You know,
That happened in Wyoming back in 2019, 2018. That's I shot that nice 78 inch antelope. It looked great. I mean, I was seeing when I was talking to Troy. I was out there with Troy Franklin, and there was so many up and comer bucks. I mean, that were going to be just. I thought I was like, wow, next year will be absolutely fantastic, and we were having a really good discussion about that. And that year came, the next year came, and there was a huge die off. There was just a big kill with, I don't know if it was blue tongue or whatever it was out there, and then the herd suffered, and it still hasn't come back. So again, you know, knowing that, you shut that down. Don't even give a tag out or whatever you got to do, but that shouldn't affect the whole state. That's however you're going to do sections or eastern, western, north, south. You know, it's not, you shouldn't shut the whole state down because all the other areas were just fine. So again, that's their recipe on how they do it, but it's just, you know, getting that understanding of how is it really fair, or how is it really relatable to what they're doing.
Yeah, again, with me, like, kind of being down the middle, you know, I look at kind of both sides of the spectrum. So I'll use North Dakota as an example, right? So one of the thoughts is, you know, based on these surveys that they do, and this is, of course, assuming that people are being truthful.
Correct.
And I don't see why anybody would have a reason to lie, right? I mean, you got to know in the back of your head that, like, they do the surveys for a reason. They're very important. And if you're going to mislead it, you know, maybe some guys think, oh, well, I don't know. That's a whole nother rabbit hole that I don't even go down. But where I'm at with it is so one of the things that they're starting to consider now is that they're figuring out, based on these surveys, like how many non-resident hunters are going into very specific zones. And then, so now they're trying to make the decision, like, well, maybe what we'll do is when you apply for the non-resident any deer tag in North Dakota, you have to specify the zone that you want. And then you'll gain points in that individual zone, or you'll gain points, but individual zones will kind of have their own threshold. Like, you might only need 2 points for this area, or you might only need 1 point for that area. And that's kind of how we do it with, like, bear hunting in Minnesota, right? So, like, 2 years, I can probably get a bear tag in the Boundary Waters, no problem. There's not many people that want to hunt up there. It's difficult. But when you start getting, you know, kind of over to the Duluth area and in some of those zones, you're looking at upwards of like 3 to 4 years, right?
Yeah,
and
I'm
that's
at 5 to 6 years now.
Yeah, and so that's, you know, and I kind of like that process. So I'm in support of that for the state of North Dakota, because again, I'm willing to wait a little bit longer to make sure that the opportunity and your percentages of success is greater. And then you just kind of spread it out over multiple different states. You know, you just kind of figure it out and try to plan it out where, okay, this year I should be able to draw this tag this year, and then the following year I should be able to draw that one. And, you know, you got to ramp it up to start. But, you know, then there's some states and some areas where, at our age, you wouldn't even mathematically be able to draw a tag. It's like
Correct.
you're talking about with the points creep and stuff like that too, you know.
Yeah.
But then you got South Dakota, and they're kind of doing this thing like what Oklahoma wants to do. Every year that I hunted South Dakota, the area that we would hunt, we were required to get an access permit. Didn't cost anything. You just had to apply for it. And again, just another way for them to kind of keep track of, okay, who's hunting where and what little sections, right? And then after a while, they're like, okay, well, the only way that you can hunt in that area now is you have to apply for the access permit. But you can't apply for the access permit until you buy the tag.
Right.
Yep.
So to me, that's more of an effort. It's more of an effort to just like shy people away, and it works because I'm not even bothering anymore because took me 2 to 3 seasons to kind of figure out that area. And it's not to say that I couldn't find something else, but time is very limited for me. You know, kids are here now, and so like everything has to be I have to stack the deck in my favor as best as I possibly can. You know, so now I've shifted my focus back to other areas. So it's with South Dakota, it's not a matter of just like knowing that if I apply for the next 6 years, I'm going to finally get that tag and then I can go hunt where I want. It's like the chances of me drawing that access permit as a non-resident in that state are slim to none. So now I'm forking over $275 and I got to find a new place to hunt, you know?
Right.
And again, so I could start that process and I could start, you know, trying to find other places to go. And if you have private ground, I think you're not restricted there, but I don't know of a lot of private ground where you have opportunity at mule deer. You know, I mean, you've got some access to some places, you know.
But I don't know how good it is yet.
Yeah.
It's only the 1 year.
Yeah. And it would just be, you know, I would have to do the research and do all that kind of stuff too. But, so in some ways I kind of contradict myself even, you know what I mean, between those two states. What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And to go back to the high prices of the licenses, I mean, I've elk hunted one time and I'd elk hunt every single year without a doubt in multiple states if I could afford it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just so far out of reach. You know, we're talking about what Montana now is for your combo big game. It's like $1,300 or $1,350 or something like that. And then after gas and food and lodging and all that, you're
It's
$2,000 deep. And,
Oh yeah. Yep.
And you know, if you're responsible enough and you know, if you break that down over 12 months and then you squirrel away a couple $100 a month, it's doable. You can make it happen. So there's always that too. You know, but it's just an ungodly amount of money to go, and then to not have success. You know, it's like that kind of stuff. I mean, that kind of stuff probably creates. I mean, it probably tears families apart. I kid you not. Like, I know guys where I'm like, you sure you want to do that? Like, you want to put that ahead of your marriage? I don't know if that's a good idea. You know, that kind of stuff. So,
Well, what's funny is like this is article actually from North Dakota, and they said even though that majority non-residents went to this same unit, residents were responsible for most of the success. So as much as they might hate a non-res person, they're the ones that are still killing them themselves. And then I just thought too, it said like 68% did not agree that there's too much bow hunting pressure, specifically bow hunting. And I do agree with that. I didn't, you know, maybe on your opening days and maybe when it's getting closer to rut, you probably see a lot more. And then 55% also are not in support of reducing the congestion. So, I mean, take that how you might. I know when I was there specifically, rifle season gets busy. And there's a lot of congestion. And I don't know, this is only one state. You know, I can't speak on every state, but
Correct.
I know, okay, I'm gonna generalize here. Like Minnesota and my experience out of state with the rifle guys, I don't know if we're just cut from a different cloth being bow hunters, knowing the amount of room you kind of have to give and take because bow hunting is so much slower going. But I feel like the rifle guys are so much more careless in what actions they do. And I hope that really gets everyone
Well, if it makes you feel
flustered,
any
but-
better, I can tell you that I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, when there's a guy that rolls up ripping a dart, hey, you guys hunting out here? Well, I'm standing in camo and got a bow, so yes, I am. So, I mean, pretty obvious. And then he's going to go walk out there, and it's fine. I mean, I'm not going to fight anyone over 30,000 acres. And
Right.
granted, that guy ended up giving us the spot to hunt, which is I just thought was crazy. I'm like, yeah, man, you go over there, we'll go over this way, and we got 15,000 acres between us. Like, we're good. But again, another set of them come in and they just bust everything up, and they're not, again, with a rifle, you're talking hundreds of yards for success. And us bow hunters, I think we're much more careful about bumping into others or, that respect of boundaries, just because we got to be 100 yards or less most of the time.
Yeah, there's a different stealth function
Yeah.
between a firearm or an archery. We just have to be closer, so I think we're more hyper alert of what's going on around us.
Yeah.
and kind of, this is our tactical zone in which we have to live in, and now we got to, get from here to there, and we got to get closer. It's different, yeah. You can. I mean, now they're building guns that are 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
Or 500 yards. That's that's very effective.
Of course, it still takes practice and everything too.
Oh, sure.
But
Yep.
yeah, it's just I feel coming from one of the states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, I feel all three of those are the same in saying it's brown, it's down.
Yep.
For any rifle guy or muzzle loader or shotgun, it's brown, it's down. That's it. And us bow hunters, again, maybe it gets to that point, but it's way easier said than done and a lot harder to do.
Yeah.
And so going back to the whole non-resident thing, I don't think for bow hunting specifically in the industry that we're in, yes, there's a lot more people trying to get those tags, but right there, that's one state, granted, but I think residents are still going to be more successful. They have the leg up on all of us. They live there. They can scout it much easier. It might be a 5-hour drive versus a 16-hour drive for us. So, I mean, I don't think I don't know. It does get annoying, though. You hear other podcasts talking about, I hear this guy over here bugling. Just sounds terrible. It scares everything out of there, whatever. So, yeah, that would get annoying. But, I mean, I don't know. If you're not successful, then what's the matter? I mean, use that to your advantage, really. It's basically what I did. I saw the rifle guys coming in, and they're pushing everything this way. Okay, I'll take note. I'll go sit over here the next morning. So when these guys come in and, screw everything up, perfect. You just pushed all deer right to me. Thank you. Like,
And again, that's, with archers, you're just being more aware of what's going on around you, and you're always trying to use that to your advantage. If animals if there's no firearm season going on, if they're moving or whatever, you're thinking, well, I know that this feed's over there and I know this water's over there, so yeah, they're going to be heading that way, and so I need to get from here to there. How am I going to do that? So there's those wheels are always going. But yeah, and if you do see other hunters, and then the firearm thing pops up, yeah, you definitely, that's smart math.
Yeah.
You're always in that mindset of it's a game of chess. But I think it's a different game, for archers compared to the firearm thing. I guess I haven't, I don't, I used to do the firearm thing years ago, teenager type of thing in Minnesota. And, situations where, there were bullets whizzing by my head. So
Yeah.
I the taste for firearm season, I was done with that. Yeah. So I guess I haven't been around that where it's been a mixed bag of the archery season with the firearm happening at the same time. There's a lot of ethical people that I know that are firearm people don't want to be like, we're just being totally anti-firearm. No, there's some really good, firearm peeps out there, and there's bow hunters too that aren't probably the most ethical out there. So there's that similarity. But yeah, I guess I've detached from that whole firearm archery thing happening at all. Like we go to Illinois and we leave a day before the firearm season is happening. We could hunt down there, but it's nah. It's just I just kind of shy away from it, just from those experiences that I had.
I think the further west you get away from the Midwest, I would think I see a lot more people like further Montana, Idaho, Utah being. Those are guys that I'm like, okay, that seems like a rifle guy that knows the game.
Oh yeah.
But then you get around here where, you have bullets flying by.
Well, it's the old Minnesota
going.
11-pointer. You shoot every spike that you can. But that's a whole other topic. But
yeah.
It is pretty wild though. I hunted North Dakota this year, a majority of it during the rifle season, and I didn't really want to do that, but it just was kind of the way that things worked out. Excuse me. And we really didn't run in. I mean, we had like around camp, there was some rifle hunters, but none of them were hunting where we were. But the thing is like we were hiking in, a decent amount. And from what I've seen in the past, we'll go into a place where we can drive in, and then we'll hike in, a few miles, half mile, sometimes depending on, what you're seeing, as you're working your way in, you're glassing, you're looking around. Oh, there's some deer right there. Then it stops you. So if you don't see nothing, you keep going. But usually if you can see the trucks driving the roads, and you see the orange, you can see it for miles, and you can see them in there, and they'll drive up and stop right next to your truck, that you can see up there, and then they'll glass for a while, and then they'll turn around and leave. And I think that's just what's going on mostly for gun hunters. And again, so going back to what you were saying, this is an anti-gun movement or nothing like that. We need it. In order to control the population, it's necessary, because we as bow hunters can't do it alone. We can't. Honestly, we can't. You look at the numbers, the percentages of animals that are taken with a gun compared to a bow, and you just couldn't do it. And then we talked about this a little bit yesterday too. I mean, if we didn't control that population, if we didn't have the people that survive or utilize deer for sustenance, the food industry would collapse. I mean, it wouldn't be able to support the lack of, or, to make up for the deer that are hunted, and the, turkeys and bear and whatever else. So it's necessary. We need them. We need to work together. But going back to the gun thing, right? Like I have all the years I've hunted out there, very rarely have I ever even heard a gunshot.
Yeah.
But the opener in Minnesota it's like World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, it is bang, 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 bang. And I hunted with a rifle with my dad for many years. And this one guy that I hunted with, and God rest his soul, he's not with us anymore. Really nice guy, but he shot a Remington 742, semi-auto, and he unloaded that clip on every single deer he shot. Every time. We'd go find the deer, and your leg busted, antler shot off, just riddles them with holes. And I'm just like, man, why every time? You should be able to just one shot, man. You should be able to just take one shot.
No,
and again, I'm not trying to give gun hunters a hard time. I mean, I've flung multiple arrows at the same animal too. So, but I'm not exactly sure where I was going with that, other than the fact that, we need to stick together regardless.
Absolutely.
We need to keep the population under control together.
Yeah. You're basically saying we're not better than them, but we are.
See, again, I contradicting myself all the
time. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Lord.
No, I mean, but it is. It's hard to articulate,
Yeah, but
it's a different deal.
Let's break it down to an even simpler thing. What we've been hot on, turkeys. I mean, without gun hunters, I mean, the cities would just be flipping crowded with turkeys.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of times that you've sat down your bow because you're like, forget it, I'm done. We're grabbing the gun. It's done. So, yes, gun hunters are definitely needed. I mean, there would probably be scads of deer across the highways, more than what there are now.
Well,
if it weren't for it.
population control is everything, because if you have an overpopulation of anything, well, then they go through a cycle of, said area can't even support it, so they're going to die off. There's going to be diseases and things that happen, coyotes with mange and distemper and all that fun stuff. I've seen that, where you get too many in an area, and Mother Nature has to take care of it that way, and it's not a very pleasant thing to see or have it happen. So, and then of course, your domesticated animals can possibly get whatever they have. So then you got those concerns and all that. So what we do as anybody who goes afield is a very valuable asset to conservation.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So this might bring up a few things. I'm wondering, so I looked up another stat. It's a couple of years old now, but they said in 23 there was 170,000 new bow hunters from the year prior. But since we're talking rifles, I'm wondering if maybe part of this, I think a big chunk is, of course, social media. Yep. So I wonder, a lot of these states have been really hard, even in the last 10, 15 years, to get a rifle tag as a non-resident guy. So it almost makes me wonder if, a lot of the, everything out west is beautiful compared to us flatlanders, So some of these guys want to hunt and get that experience. And in order to do that experience, I'm sure they're seeing it on social media. And, well, if I pick up a bow at the time, 5 or 10 years ago, it was easier to get a tag. Oh, yeah. You almost guarantee, okay, now I can get some experience, keep putting points toward my rifle tag. Sure. And then, so having more bow hunters, I feel like that might be part of it too, is just it's guys that are sick of the waiting for rifle, so now they're going to bow hunting. And now that, of course, creates more pressure. More people are getting in because all these states in the past, why would you care if a bow hunter comes in? I mean, the success rate is so low typically.
Correct.
And, I mean, even that still proved it. The other, stat for one state, most non-res guys are unsuccessful, so charge more, take more money for the state. But now it seems to be more than anything just overcrowding issues on humans. But yet it contradicts itself and says, no, I didn't see that many bow hunters, But it sounds like that's just one state. It sounds like Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, there's a huge issue out there with the four-wheeler guys running e-bikes and four-wheelers and everything.
Sure.
Just, again, because there's so many more people running those lands.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the social media thing goes, and Frank and I were talking about that kind of stuff too, where it's certainly, I think, helping people and maybe giving people more confidence to go out of state and do stuff like that, and then you look at these stats and there is a lot of contradiction. You know what I mean? So then we were talking a little bit about that Hunt Quietly page. That's run by Matt Ranella, who is Steve Ranell's brother, who sees it's a complete 180 the way that he sees things. Like I think that the Meat Eater crew and those guys are more in support of the R3 movement.
What is this?
Which it stands for Recruitment, Retention, and Reactivation.
Right on.
And so that's also something that backcountry hunters and anglers really pushes hard, and the state of Minnesota especially pushes it really hard. And so what it is, I'll just read it right from this website here. It's a nationwide movement to increase or maintain participation in and support for shooting sports, hunting, and angling. On the hunting and shooting sports side, this movement started as a result of noticeable decline in hunting participation in the 1980s and an uncertain future for shooting sports. And so, I'm trying to find in here where these numbers are coming from, because there's multiple different avenues, right? Like you can look at license sales. That's a definitive way to find out how many people are hunting. And then I've also heard people talk about the amount of money that's being brought in for the Pittman-Robertson Act. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's an excise tax that manufacturers pay. I think it's 11% on very specific products. There's like a very specific list of products, but like for Vapor Trail, for example, we pay that tax on both our bowstrings and the arrow rests. I don't know about the stabilizers for sure, but I think it's basically any accessory that can be mounted to a bow. I think arrows are subject to that.
I would imagine so. That's a huge cash cow.
Probably, and the bows too. I can't remember, but it is, and it's not just in it's outdoor stuff specifically. Like I think even like backpack sales and stuff like that. You know what I mean? To help support it, that money is infused back into conservation throughout the state, and so that number I don't think gives you really accurate representation, especially more recently, because with like Amazon and with like all these copycat companies that are coming out of China, there's less money being infused into the Pittman-Robertson Act, and so when they see that number go down, they instantly assume there's less people recreating outside, and so then it's like, oh my gosh, if we keep, then they'll run some future analysis and look to see how the decline is going, and then they'll go, oh my gosh, by the year 2030, there isn't going to be any hunters left, so we need to start recruiting people. And so again, where are they getting the numbers from? That's the question. And I'm not saying that information isn't here. I haven't dove deep enough into this website here to find out, but that's one of the arguments that I see a lot, and in conjunction with social media as well. Going back to the Hunt Quietly social media movement, is that they're always like reposting stuff that they see on social media that's basically promoting hunting. And what they're trying to do is, it's just like, hey, just go out there and hunt and feed your family, and you don't need to advertise it on social media. You don't need to put it out there. People don't need to know about it. We need to take a step back on it a little bit, because there's getting to be too many hunters, and it's detrimental to the animal populations and all this kind of stuff. And we've seen it here in Minnesota, how the numbers are convoluted with the whole crossbow thing coming through. So the numbers that come from the state agencies, you can't really trust those numbers either. So it's like, again, so it's like, what do you do? And for any of our listeners, if you're, feel free to chime in and kind of let us know. I mean, if I'm putting out a stat or something like that doesn't seem to make sense, or I want to get educated on it. It's just hard, because when you go out in the internet world, out on the World Wide Web, there's so much information, so much contradictory information, so much. It's just analysis paralysis. You don't know which way to go. Who do you support? What organizations do you go after? I mean, I saw the other day some guy was ripping hard on RMEF and Jason Matzinger, because RMEF, infused a ton of money into a hunt that Matzinger went on to, take this elk. But in turn, he makes a film that reaches thousands of people, that gets them to then infuse money back into RMEF and become members of RMEF and grow that. So is that a bad thing, or is it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how
if you're promoting and educating and giving it a voice for all of us, why would that be a bad thing?
That's how I see it. You know what I mean? And maybe it's just a jealousy thing. Like, well, why aren't they infusing money into my hunt so that I can, but he has a large platform and he has a big following, and it's not just him, it's a lot of other people too. Yeah. But you see that a lot, where people are ripping on some of these guys, and I'm like, I mean, I kind of understand where you're coming from there, but at the same time, like, you got to look at the big picture. You know what I mean? Yeah. It is a way of, each one of these nonprofit organizations has a marketing budget, and they, you know what I mean? So it's like, they're spending money on all these leaflets that they're, these letters they're sending out to all these people talking about, oh, we got a banquet over here, go check that out. Oh, hey, can, become a member again. We'll give you, a knife set. And, so there's all these funds that are being spent there. What creates more awareness, that, or, so you're spreading it out across multiple different channels and trying to, increase the awareness.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, and it's given to someone who's got a lot of hours afield and has talked to large groups of people, and I'm sure, it's been earned to be in that position to actually represent and to give that voice to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we got to maybe stop and think of, why that person. Will look into their background. They've gotten and done and have been and, can present and do all of these wonderful things to be a voice for all of us, because we're not all articulate to be in the forefront and be that person to give us a voice, can stand up in front of people that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to commend anybody that can do that. That's a gift.
That's that whole Cam Hanes thing. Must be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Is the whole thing. Is so many people rip on him, saying, oh, it must be nice to be able to get these private land opportunities. And that's the other thing so many people have to understand. Going out of state and they see like all these big names in the industry killing, well, they probably have private access. This is not always public land.
Mm-hmm.
Some are, but a lot are not. But Cam Hanes, perfect example. I mean, yeah, he's very articulate and he's gotten a lot of people into it, and very much so earned that that spot to have access to private land ranches in Utah, or maybe in Oregon, maybe Montana, Idaho, all these other places. Yeah, he's I'd say the respect is earned.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been doing. Well, shoot, he wrote that book like what, 30 years ago. Something.
Yeah, I read
think
it
it was
almost
in the
every year,
90s,
too.
late 90s. Was it backcountry bow hunting or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you can't be mad at someone that's done it well.
No, he's got a resume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a hunting resume, and he's earned every stripe that's on his sleeve.
Yeah.
But that begs the question. So how do you feel, Frank, about how it brings new people into the sport? It increases the amount of money that we have available for conservation and to ensure the future of the lands that we get to hunt and these opportunities that we get. But how do you feel about how that increases the number of hunters and then in turn decreases the opportunities that we have to hunt, because it's that very thing that is forcing the states to increase license prices and forcing them to get permission and pay another $100 to hunt an area. So that's where I have this form the storm. I had moments where I was just like, I don't even know if I want to put this out there now, because you have those moments where you're just like, man, it is hard to get places to hunt, and now am I being a part of the problem? Is somebody going to identify a landmark from where I'm hunting, and now all of a sudden they're going to go in there and try to kill that buck that I chased after for 9 days? That sort of stuff.
Right.
Because there's some sleuths out there that can find that out.
Oh yeah, no, that's all. Even on private land, you have that in Illinois. I've been hunting there for years, or Nebraska. I mean, and the animal's going to walk off property, and it's going to go onto another property. And if someone gets successful, you got to be happy for them. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they put their time in, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they were that first hour of the hunt and they got that. Mm-hmm. Going back to what you're posing for the first question is that's why we have DNR for every single state, right? That is their number one job, to make sure that all the checks and balances are happening, so to ensure that we have a resource. So right, that's that balancing act, that sliding scale, that's every year it's going left to right, and they got to figure out the best solutions to maintain that. I don't think necessarily making high prices, that's just, I think we're pricing people out that would love to be able to go do it, because I've had those conversations with people that are like, well, I'd really like to do that, but it's so expensive, there's just no way my wife will let me go, or my husband will let me go, because it's too expensive. So that's kind of sad to hear, because to be out at first light and hearing elk bugle and seeing them down in the valley and seeing the steam rolling out of their nostrils and that type of stuff, we all try to describe it, but unless you experience it, whether you get it or not, whether you get a shot at one or not, but to just have that encounter, that's the hunt.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it right
you're
there.
right. Absolutely.
So it's that each state, their primary function is to have that opportunity for each and every one of us. So it's left to the state to balance that. I guess and that's fine. If the herd is struggling and in these areas, yeah, shut it down, or yeah, I don't get to hunt there this year or that state this year. And I don't have problems with that, and we need to regulate hunters. Well, I don't know if they're doling out the tags for that zone, kind of, if you got 30,000 tags for this zone, which is the size of this room, well, that's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah. Big problem.
So there's ways to, I think, maybe figure that out and to know, they have the set dates. So is there going to, what's overlapping? Is there, with firearm and archery, what's overlapping in these zones? I mean, they have that data, and I'm sure they have the recipes for it, and maybe we don't understand it, or maybe they've never considered it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, I just don't want, if you want to go hunt something and you really have a passion to go do that, to not have that opportunity, and or the only opportunity is you got to spend $10,000.
Yeah.
Or, $1.4 million on a sheep tag.
Yep. It's pretty crazy.
So that I get, I don't have the answers, but this is why we're having the conversation.
Right.
And this is I guess, the more dialogue we have, hopefully down the road, there can be more of a set structure that we all understand that this is how they determine getting to where they're at.
Yeah.
But I just I'm concerned with the dollars amount getting so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pushing a demographic of people out of the opportunity.
And it's certainly happening. It is
Oh, for sure.
happening.
It's been happening for years.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I was sitting over here thinking more and more about those percentages. And, okay, if non-residents make up for 40% for that state, or, X amount, but yet most of them are still unsuccessful, 10% or less.
Oh, for sure.
Why limit the non-resident guys? And I mean, if there's that many more bow hunters, but then that comes down to, what are these states doing for their resident people? Are they starting to take their tags away? Which then I would agree, yeah, you should probably, in that zone, then you should probably start limiting the non-resident. But right now I feel like, outside looking in, as Midwesterners looking to the West, the gun is all pointed at us as we're the problem. We are to blame for this issue of overpressure and over hunting. But then it's just, I'm kind of starting to laugh at it. Well, not all 170,000 hunters in 23 were non-resident hunters.
Right.
Some of them had to make up your own state's issues, and so maybe it has to come back to looking at your resident population or your pressures. How many more resident bow hunters just joined, and now they're putting extra pressure. How many of those guys are the idiots that are, tearing up the trails out west or whatever, and I'm not saying let the non-residents have all the tags. Definitely not. Again,
No.
If there's a zone that, needs some help, then limit all of it, resident and non-resident. But again, outside looking in, it seems that the gun's pointed at us when we're only making up for maybe 10% of the success.
Yeah.
And the rest is still resident if they're successful.
Well, and I wouldn't even have a problem too. I'm a guest coming to your house, so I would think I would want you to have the opportunities, and then I would get whatever leftover type of format would be presented that way. So yeah, if you're a resident, that should be to your advantage, of course, as far as tag opportunity. But I don't know with the non-resident thing, why is it so jacked up on the price end of things?
What do you think it is, or why do you think it is that the state caters so heavily to its own residents? I mean, that sounds like a really dumb question, but is there? I mean, what's the fear there? Are you worried that all of your residents are going to leave the state if you don't regulate how it works, or what do you think is
that's
the
interesting.
motivation?
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I don't know. and again, me being, a non-resident person going into a state, I'm a guest in your state. So yes, you should have first opportunities for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then, great, I got a tag. So now I'm here, and I'm going to be respectful and be conscious of other hunters and the land and all these opportunities. So yeah, I don't know if it is there a fear that they would leave the states to go to other states.
Because where my head is I'm like picturing, like a council meeting or something like that. You know what I mean? Where you get to hear the public comment, on
Sure.
on the rules, around a state roundtable deal, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got a bunch of residents in the room, waving their fists and saying, "Well, it's so stinking non-residents," and so then it's like, so do they look at the numbers, or are they just like, "Oh, well, we gotta take care of our own,"
They're afraid of
no
the
matter
outcry.
what, the probably what they're saying, or the pedestal that they're standing on is, well, I pay taxes in this state, and non-residents don't, so I should have the first opportunity, right? But again, it's just that whole, what is it that makes them want to cater to the residents of the state? And then I lost my train of thought, but
I think they are just worried about public outcry or backlash. That they didn't provide for their own, so to speak. Let them have first dibs. But there is, we're dropping a lot of state names, but like South Dakota, they don't let non-residents hunt until after X date. So like Frank was saying, I think maybe that could be, they are the resident, they get first come, first serve. And we've talked about this with actually certain city hunts. There's one that popped up last year where it was actually on it's half federal, but it's also a business. But those employees were actually not ever given the opportunity first. And there's a lot of bow hunters there. And so the thought, and so they were
mad.
They were pissed. They were extremely pissed. And then there was the backlash within. And so my thought is, okay, so there we go. There's the resident hunter. They get first come, first serve. They go through this, organization for the other hunters, and they go at a different time. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to really get it that tricky, but shoot, get the residents to have the 2 meatiest weeks of the rut. Non-res hunts on either side of it, or after the rut, then it's intermingled. But start limiting the time slots. I mean, well, like New Mexico has that. They have multiple tag time frames. You're only there for 2 weeks, I think. I think it's 2 weeks, and that's all you get. And then I think you can go back, but I think something like that would help with some overcrowding issues.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you mentioned that, because I heard about that too. I heard about those, and I would, if I put myself in their shoes, I'd be pretty upset. I think there was one employee there that got into hunt.
Yeah, I think it's one that actually drew, and then the other 2 or 3 got waitlisted.
Yeah, so it's like, so I get that, and I think it's a simple solution. You give all the employees the opportunity to choose when they want to hunt, and then the other organization hunts around that.
Yeah, you keep it within your set time frame that you're trying to get this done. Give them the 3 or 4 days, and then, okay, you weren't successful. There will be another hunt period later on, but now the non-res in this instance, the other organization comes in.
Right.
But, I don't.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like with being out west and running around and stuff, I guess I've never had a bad, encounter with other resident hunters. If anything, we share information and try to help each other out. As far as like, where are you hunting, or where would you like to hunt, or I saw that you were here first, or whatever that is, and work a game plan out, and then share information. You're like, yeah, I've been seeing, or I glassed off, X ridge and blah, blah. Maybe you want to get back down in there, or like, yeah, I'm done. You want to, I've worked this. Maybe you want to continue to work that, So I guess I've never come across where it's been like, oh, you non-resident hunter, and you're messing everything up for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what percentage of that is really true. What is valid? Is it just one troll out there that, is hammering away on social media, keyboard warriors and stuff like that, just there's a couple, people that are mad because not, you can't make everybody happy all the time. There's no solution that's going to make everybody happy.
Yeah, and the state's got a big job to do, so you can't ever expect any perfection to come from that either. I think in a lot of cases you're just kind of seeing what sticks and, just going based on past experience, and you're constantly having to pivot because you get, like perfect example, you get a winter kill or something and it changes everything,
What do you guys think? This could be a burning topic too. What do you think the ethics are of points? And I can extrapolate as me. I'm being the guy right now. I don't have a lot of money to actually pay for a tag. I also want to do a lot of my own research, boots on the ground, and get out to those states and have some real world eyes on where I want to hunt.
Sure.
But let's say 5 more years from now, it's super hard to get a tag, resident and non-resident, but I just sat here for 10 years. I can go anywhere I want. And what if you have a whole group of me's that sat there on these points, and now we all just cashed them in, kicked out all the resident guys. We got our, I don't think that'll ever happen where, we get preference. But in a way, it's as if we did, because we could have had 10 years of scouting and planning and, squirreling away money and everything. We can go in there and do whatever we want. But I almost kind of like the randomness of like a New Mexico thing. No points are ever rewarded. It's all random. And
well, and this is an interesting topic because I just know of goofy things. Everything is computerized, right? So it should be pretty much guaranteed. Like on every 3rd year or every 4th year, I can go hunt that state, and you get some guys that draw a tag every single year, and they get to hunt that state every single year, or they've been putting in for 10 years and still haven't gotten their tag. They should have got it at year 6 or 8 or whatever. So it's kind of, I don't get where the algorithm is that goofed up. I mean, especially with IT stuff and software, that kind of got a background with that. If you're putting in every single year, it's already calculated you've been putting in for X amount. So this moves you to this level to, you're going to get a tag. And it doesn't happen that way. I don't get that, or a lifetime moose deal, and the person's drawn it a couple times.
Yeah.
It's like in Minnesota.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. How does that happen? You should have been pulled off a list. So there's these, I don't get.
It's like what we were talking about with Cole earlier too. The percentage of, at least based on the historical data from the state of North Dakota, the percentage that he did not draw that tag is absolutely ridiculous. Like, seriously, he's 1 out of the entire world.
Yeah, and he and the fact that we know him, I started calling him the other day when he stopped in. I'm calling him number 5 because he is the dude this year that will have 5 points. And he's like, yeah, I'm the only one in the state. I'm like, you realize?
Ever.
Yeah.
Like, no,
it's never happened.
In the world, man, you are the only one.
Did you use uppercase instead of lowercase on the spelling of your last name?
I mean, of course, we can't. It's just, across the number of people that applied, but still that percentage is so extremely low that it's just ridiculous. And I don't know if it has anything to do with that, but, some of that is where, like, the state of Montana, they allocate a certain percentage of tags to first-year applicants. So that could be part of it, but still, like you said, if you're supposed to get it within 6 and you've been going 10, 11 years or whatever, there's points creep, right? We talked about that a little bit, but it doesn't jump from 6 years to all of a sudden now you got to go 12 years. It's incremental, as the years go by. And that's why I was saying, there's some states where you and I mathematically couldn't even get a tag because as the years continue, that gap gets bigger and bigger, and so there's no point in even applying.
I would think at some point they force you to actually draw your tag. I'm certain they do, because you could probably sit there. Like, my worry or thought, like specifically with Cole, was like, okay, what if he was able to get an exception to not draw his point this year?
Yeah.
He's just pulling all of those points that much further because he's the outlier. So
Right.
now he's creating a whole new bell curve because he is the outlier.
Right.
And now that, I mean, again, this is being the selfish non-resident person. This screws every person from these years on, to have to wait longer to get a tag because he didn't draw.
Yeah, and that's what would be interesting, because every state does that differently on how they keep you in the system.
Yep.
So that they know where you're at, and then how would that fall off? And that's the thing too. Like, okay, so with me not being as mobile, so say I was doing the same thing, I'm going to be out west, blah blah blah, backpacking it. That's not an option for me
I was
anymore.
gonna say, good
So
luck.
now if I still was hopefully wishfully thinking, and I'm 10, 12 years, I'm throwing the algorithm off, would be like, I would, in my case, it'd be great if they'd call me saying, hey, we realize that, are you going to draw your tag or not? If so, maybe we'll give you half of your money back for the points if you want to drop off the system.
Yeah.
That would be a nice option, because I can't physically do that anymore.
Yeah.
That would be great to recoup some of my monies that I did invest in, and I'll drop off. The algorithm gets better. That's going to push the slot open for you now. Now you're
Right.
going to be able to draw. So I guess I don't know how that works, but it is funny because I know a lot of, even people in the industry that, do shows, the professionals out there where they're, they have to do, all these multiple states. So they're trying to draw, or even I know guys that were like, okay, I should draw this year. I should draw Iowa, then Illinois, then. But then all of a sudden, no, they get pushed a year, and then now they have those 2 hunts that they have to do that year.
Oh, right.
Instead of like them having one
A gap
out of state
year.
hunt, and they'll plan it that way where it's like they, technically for the next 6 years, this is how my hunting is going to look. Nope.
Yeah.
It gets messed up, or it gets pushed 2, and then all of a sudden they have 3 hunts that drop in the same year, and so then they go. But I guess that's what's funny to me is like, how does that happen? How does the algorithm get off to?
Because I know, like,
make it harder for the hunters.
If you
out
don't,
there.
if you choose not to put any more points, they eventually do just wipe you. After 2 years, I think.
Okay.
Most
Well, that's
in a
interesting.
couple places that
Yeah.
if you missed, like, let's say this year's application cycle, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it again next year. But if you miss next year, done,
Right.
cooked. Which I think that's great. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, if there's someone like me, I mean, I would think at some point they have to force you to take it. And I know,
Mm-hmm.
like, my bighorn sheep deal with, like, Colorado. After year 4, you must put in for a zone.
Okay.
So your odds are like, I think it's literally 0% in the first, like, 6 years as a non-resident.
Right.
And even at that, I think someone has drawn at 7. That's one zone, but when I was looking at it, it's basically 0% in the first 10 years. So you're not going to get that tag, but they do force you to at least apply for something.
Mm-hmm.
But, it, like, going back to elk, which is a much more higher population across all states, if I sat out here and held points forever and just all of a sudden jumped in front of everyone or pulled that bell curve off, I mean, I could be screwing everyone else,
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's truly, like, unethical. But I do like the randomness of having no points, because it's a even playing field across the board.
Yeah.
And then I'm not quite sure how these you can create a group that's 3-1, or 4-1, but I don't know if that really increases your odds having 4 names as one group, because then all 4 of you can go.
Mm-hmm.
But at least then you don't have someone that just sat on their points for years and pulled everyone with them.
Yeah, there's some trickery that you can do. Like in Montana, you can, if you have no points and you apply with a group of guys that have 3 points, then it, like, averages them out across the 3.
Yeah.
So you have 6
Interesting.
points, you have 3 applicants, so now you have 2.
Mhm.
It's split, 6 divided by 3.
'Cause
So
usually
now you're going in with 2 points.
They usually take that lowest point in all situations, but if you have 0 and they already almost guaranteed give you a tag, well, they're not going to do that when you have 3 other people behind you with points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it'd be silly to go in with 0 because you have a really good chance that first point. But then if you had 1 and they had 3,
right?
I mean, they're putting themselves in a position. The guys who have 3 points are putting themselves in a position where they may not draw now when maybe they should. But for the sake of being able to hunt with your buddies or whatever, however you work that out. But
right, no, and that's interesting. I mean, and that's the species in that state draws that type of structure probably.
Mm-hmm.
There's elk in Minnesota, but that's it's not as
Once in a
plentiful.
lifetime
It's not
as well.
Colorado highest elk populations as far as states go, but
Well, there's like, go ahead.
but again, just the opportunities, and making it financially available to each and all is kind of the scariness of how it's getting now. It's just it's been growing and growing and growing. This just increases every single year that it's just like going to be unattainable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is unattainable for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's the answers? Yeah, we just
Right,
don't,
yeah,
we don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely way more expensive now. And then there's places like Idaho. That's just a crap show still. That's a first come, first serve, I believe, still. First to the till, and you could literally bring 3 licenses to the counter. One guy could bring 3 licenses and say, get a tag for this guy, and this guy.
Oh.
And I think this year they finally put an end to that because they would literally ship their driver's licenses to someone there.
Sure.
Have them sit at a gas station and just go down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's completely screwy.
Yeah.
But, and there you go. There's the pay to play. Because if you got the money to do it.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, you're going to do it every time.
Mm-hmm.
And throw some extra cash at a guy that's willing to stand at the counter for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just an interesting topic. It boils down to, I just want everybody to have an opportunity if they've got they want to hear an elk bugle at first light or see that pronghorn come across the prairie, chasing them does and establishing his area and marking. And, there's all these wonderful things where I got to see a mountain lion in Montana spot and stalk and kill a mule deer and then drag it down to a rock outcropping and start to feed on it. I mean, that's wow. I mean, I'm right there witnessing this whole thing over a process of 2 hours. That was amazing. So to have those cool outdoor encounters, I really want everybody to have that.
Yeah.
And I just want to see it. It just seems like it's getting harder and harder to do it.
Well, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here, and this is for the people that I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that don't they don't bow hunt or they don't hunt, so they wouldn't understand this factor. But the question I feel like they may be asking is, sure, we pay for these public lands, right? But it's these restrictions, these regulations on hunting license doesn't prevent us from using them. So if you wanted to go and watch the pronghorn come across the prairie, you could.
Sure, absolutely.
You just can't have a bow in your hand.
Correct.
But I would argue that there's a certain, it is different. Like, for us, if you're not a hunter, you wouldn't be able to understand it unless you tried it. But there is something different about looking out over a field and having a bow in your hand, And
Absolutely.
it was like last year, me and my wife and kids were hiking around Cedar Creek, and there's a hunt out in there that you can do now. You can apply for it, whatever. But we were just hiking around out there, and we were looking over this, like what do you call it? Like an oak grove or I can't remember the technical term they use for that. But I was just looking out over it, and I'm just like, man, that is pretty cool. And just imagining myself having a bow in my hand, and it just enhanced the experience that much more, even though I didn't really have one.
Yeah.
But, so that's that. I could see that being an argument where it's like, well, you don't necessarily, they're not saying you can't recreate on that ground.
Yeah.
But
I think it's
you got to pay to play.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, part of the hunt. Once you get the animal on the ground, I mean, that's also, but that encapsulates that whole experience, right?
Yep.
So seeing it coming through, this and that, and having the opportunity, and then being able to harvest that animal, I know where it came from, what it was eating, what type of area it came from. It's just more of a deeper experience that I think we all connect to as hunters when we do, I'm respecting the game is a very critical part of the whole process.
Yeah.
And, knowing what I eat and all that, I know it's healthier for me, and I know it's, we can go down that whole road of there's no additives, preservatives, steroids, this, that, and the other stuff. But there's the whole respect of knowing exactly where it came from. I mean, that's been talked about in the stratosphere, and it should be, because that's what it's all about. But then that whole thing was the hunt, that was watching and having the experience and hearing the bugles and seeing all that. So, when you partake of that on the table, it's more of an experience. It's not just dinner.
Yeah, it's an intimate experience tenfold. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Like I've been in some nature scenarios that can easily bring a tear to a man's eye.
Oh, absolutely.
But nothing like the experience that you have bringing us back to that primal instinct that we all have, and experiencing that is a very emotional thing. Extremely.
Very much. It always brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
It's taking life to potentially give more.
Yep. Absolutely.
I like that.
Yes.
Those are sage words right there.
It is. It's very. It's not an easy thing, but at the same time, it does make for a different or better experience.
For sure.
Arguably.
Without a doubt.
I mean, could you imagine if mountain bikers did get charged for public lands, though?
Yeah. I mean,
Or
but they should be. Why not?
Well,
But I think a lot of them would be
hunters
pissed
gotta
off.
be, if hunters got to be, why not?
yeah.
And that I don't want to go too far into this, but that's
Yes.
another thing where, so like, Ben, Guttormson, his father-in-law is really big on the biking thing. And so he is a anti-backcountry hunters and anglers, like wants nothing to do with them because they don't support recreating on those lands with those bikes. And so he's just like, just absolutely despises the organization, or at least at some point, who knows? But this was just a discussion that we were having at one point. So it is interesting, just how all that stuff works. But I don't see why they should be any less. I mean, if that's one of the big issues, degradation of the land and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And to me, I feel like it kind of takes away from the experience a little bit. But but Frank, now you're in a position where using those is, you need to.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not trying to say, but it just, does. It poses all these questions about
it
who
does.
should have to pay.
Yeah. And I'm happy to do it. I contribute to whatever needs to be done type of thing. So it's like, I don't know, we don't get to use the roads for free. We get taxed on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
It all
type of
comes
stuff.
down to the money again.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a money game.
So I have one last question, and you guys don't have to answer. This is actually more for our listeners, and especially the ones that don't live in the state of Minnesota.
Okay.
How do you feel about three Minnesota guys having this conversation when you're probably thinking in the back of your head, easy for you to say, nobody wants to go to Minnesota?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You know
like
what I mean?
Joey, he's like, oh, I love it here. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
not missing nothing.
Yeah.
Leave when you're done.
Well,
There's lots of fishing opportunities.
yes, and I would argue, I can see why people wouldn't want to come here. I mean, it's cold. There's mosquitoes. It's just you don't have the grandiose views like you have out there. So yeah, I'm sure more people are gravitating towards their states than people are gravitating towards here. But that's part of the reason why I like it here. But the fishing opportunities are unbelievable.
Oh, yes.
This is fantastic. Ice fishing in the winter, man. That's
Yuck.
love it.
Well, it depends now. You got pimped out ice castle or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Or a Yeti.
Now
It's,
you're
right.
bringing a
not really
hotel
fishing,
on
it's-
ice. Yeah, I'll
yeah.
be there.
Well,
But-
that's what I'm
pretty
talking
sweet.
about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
That's what I'm
that's the
talking
only
about.
kind of fishing, ice
But-
fishing.
But I would also say that if, if life didn't have me, I don't want to say stuck here, but
Right.
kind of just, not able to leave at this time,
Yeah,
I would certainly be in a Western state somewhere.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yep, it's beautiful. That's beautiful country out there. Just
Mhm.
it's very peaceful and pleasant and very much it's harmony. It's just kind of a definite recharge your soul
Mhm.
type of experience for sure.
And we've got the our crown jewel, the Boundary Waters, which is you don't like it because it hurts your back too much to carry a portage canoe around, but
Yeah.
that is one of those places where I've just
It's beautiful.
I'll just
up
break
there.
my camera out and I'll just be like filming, and all
Yep.
of a sudden I just start getting emotional. It's just so quiet. There's no pollution. There's no light pollution. Like
Yeah.
it's when it's dark, it is dark.
Yes.
Like
Oh, yeah.
it's and there's just something about that. And then just like laying there in your tent, and then you hear those loons going, and it reminds me of when I've camped out west and hearing bulls bugle.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep,
very much
sure.
like that.
Yeah. Isn't that
Northern Lights, like you can see all the stars.
Isn't that
Amazing.
funny? I can backpack, 25 to 60 miles, and that's fine. But canoe,
Every
my
time
back.
Well, what kind of canoe is it? Like a 50-foot?
no. My dad has a Kevlar boat, but it's just sitting like that for just days on end. It
just
it
every
wrecks
time I
my
talk
back.
about it, he's just like, oh,
No,
F the
it's-
He
Boundary
just
Waters.
feels
Yeah.
the pain. It's
F
like,
the
oh.
Boundary Waters, man.
Yeah, I'll be coming back and I'm like, freaking. I'll be walking like that one dude on Family Guy where he has like his legs just dead. Like I just got a dead leg because my sciatic nerve is just like my back is gone. I'm just like
Dead
dragging along. Like it's terrible. It hurts for weeks after. So
Dead
yeah, I
leg.
don't go there for that.
Yeah.
I hate it. But
All
it is
right.
beautiful. But yeah. So
Yeah,
what do you think of 3 out of staters coming into the West?
Yeah, feel free to chime in on that and see if we're just a bunch of jerks over here. that
It'd be
don't know
fun
what
to
they're
have
talking
someone
about.
that's like out there to kind of do a back and forth on this sort of thing too.
Mhm.
Their side of the table. But I'm sure it'd kind of be the same discussion. I don't think there's a right answer. The states have a big, I don't know if I want to call it problem, but a big task at hand.
They have a big task at hand. Again, it's a moving target all the time. And weather's a big component to all that because the herds are either going to flourish or it's not going to be flourishing. So then how do we make everybody happy? How do we make our state, our residents happy and our non-resident peeps happy? So I guess that's the never-ending conundrum that they're in.
Yeah, and our population continues to grow, and the state and public lands are constantly under attack, and they're
Yep.
not. There's every once in a while you hear some victories, or like some private landowner will give up a huge chunk,
Right.
to recreate on publicly, but I think the vast majority, it's not increasing enough to sustain the population growth. So it's like, that's a scary thing to think about too, and see where things are headed. And you just gotta take advantage of the opportunity and really count your blessings when you do get it.
Yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
Who knows where it's gonna be when that time comes?
Maybe people with the money just need to start saying everything's private land, and those guys that are successful on public land just don't say anything. Then all the guys that live out there just say it sucks. It all sucks. It sucks here. You don't want to come here.
Kind of coveting things there.
Just waiting for Ted Turner to hand over all that land he's got.
Yeah, he's got a couple sections out there.
Isn't it? I've heard it said that you could walk from Canada to Mexico and never leave his land.
It's a very large amount. I think you're accurate on that. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
I don't know if that's true. I've just heard it, so could just be maybe you couldn't actually do that, but maybe just the sheer amount of acreage that he
Yeah.
owns in this country would
Square
allow you to
miles
do
and
that.
miles and miles.
Yeah.
not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to do some sightseeing, from the road, wildlife on some of his ground, and he's like some of his property, like there's easements so you can drive the roads and stuff. You just can't hunt the ground, but and you'll see he's got like patrols and stuff, making sure that there isn't anybody hunting his ground and stuff. But
he owns approximately 2 million acres.
It's ridiculous.
Oh my God!
And if you want to hunt it, it's going to cost you a pretty penny.
Oh, yeah.
Oh wow!
I don't even know how that even. I've heard that you can hunt his ground. I just don't know how that functions or how that works. If you have to go, if he's got like his own outfitting business or
probably some sort of broker.
Yeah.
Hunting broker.
If you can even, I don't know. I've only heard things.
Yeah.
So that's it. 2 million acres.
Wow. Turner Ranches.
Yeah.
Kansas, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, South Dakota. So damn near. If you turn the one in South Dakota straight up, I mean, maybe it'd go up to North Dakota and then you can get there.
Yeah,
well,
he doesn't own ground in
Montana.
some of those flyover states, but
wow,
that's
crazy. I didn't know who Ted Turner was, so now I do.
Yeah, I think he actually owns the whole TBS, TNT.
You're correct.
Television network.
Mm-hmm.
I had to type in land ownership because that's the first thing.
Yeah.
And something about his television networks he owns.
Probably owns Clear Channel and who knows.
Yeah.
Cowboy.
He's got a couple nickels in his pocket that he can rub together, that's for certain.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, we're going to end it there. We've gone hour and 37 minutes. This is probably the longest episode I think we've done on the Range podcast.
We almost went 2, I think, with someone else before, but
Josh maybe.
Yeah.
Or Josh Wells.
Yeah. I think that one went a while for you guys, but
anyway.
Yeah. It's a longer one.
So, yeah. So, once again, thank you all so much for joining us today. If you have any input, please feel free to reach out on social media or send us an email, rick@vaportrailarchery.com or wood@vaportrailarchery.com. Let us know if we're just a bunch of Minnesota jerks that don't know what we're talking about, or feel free to enlighten us on some things that perhaps we missed during this whole thing. And also, for those of you who would like to watch this episode, you can head over to our Vapor Trail YouTube channel. Make sure you give us a like, hit subscribe, hit that bell so you can be up to date on all things archery. And if you're listening, give us a rating and a review. Only 5 stars will do. And with that,
we're going to pack up our bows and go to Ted Turner's place.
Have a great day, everybody.
Peace.
Vapor Trail is now offering an exclusive discount to the Range podcast listeners. Enter promo code TRP15, that's TRP15, at checkout for 15% off VTX bowstrings and Vapor Trail and Stokerized branded t-shirts, hats, and other gear.